Right, so we're going to get going now. So hello and welcome to everyone that's just joined us for today's webinar, marking the launch of version 2 of the FAST-Infra Label. It's good to have you with us. Before we begin today's main discussion, I'd just like to acknowledge some sad news. I'm very sorry to share that this weekend we learned of the passing of Jean-Francois Hebu. He was investment director at Meridium, who collaborated closely with many across the FAST-Infra community on themes closely connected to today's event. He devoted much of his professional life to making the world a better place, bringing exceptional intelligence, integrity, and a deep sense of purpose in everything he did. He was thoughtful, generous with his time, and was a true joy to work with. He will be very sadly missed. Francois' impact will be not only felt through his work, but through the many people he inspired along the way. Our heartfelt thoughts are with his family, his friends, and his colleagues. So we'd like to take a brief moment now just to acknowledge his memory before we proceed. Okay, thank you. I know this is sad news and a shock to many on the call, but after careful consideration, it was felt it would be appropriate to continue to build on Jean-Francois' work today, albeit under very sad and difficult circumstances. So today we have approximately 40 minutes, which will include some time for your questions at the end. This webinar will also be recorded, so you can watch it again and share it with your colleagues as well. So by way of introduction, I'm Hayden Morgan, partner and head of climate and sustainability consulting at Pinson Masons and a member of the FAST-Infra group. I'll be your convener for today's session, guiding our discussion on behalf of FAST-Infra. In this session, you'll also hear from my colleagues Beatrice Casatana, Specialist Associate Resilience at Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation, and Jakob Kemp, Senior Data Manager at Bloomberg. Global Infrastructure Basel and Bloomberg serve as the FAST-Infra Label Secretariat and data platform provider respectively. So it's great to have their expertise here, which brings tremendous value and insight into our discussion today. So we'll explain why the FAST-Infra Label was developed. We'll walk through some enhancements launching today, version 2, and we'll look ahead to what's coming in 2026. If we just go on to the next slide, we can see what the content today. We'll also include opportunities there to engage with the FAST-Infra team in the year ahead, and where we can meet colleagues and discuss all things sustainable infrastructure. As mentioned, we'll also take some questions towards the end of the session, so please submit them in the Q&A function on the app there, and I will curate those as we go. We'll also get, in the middle there, an application demonstration of the application portal as well. So next slide, please. So the challenges facing infrastructure. Around the world, infrastructure is aging, populations are growing, and the demand for essential services continues to rise. We face an $18 trillion infrastructure investment gap by 2040. At the same time, over 90% of the UN SDGs rely on infrastructure. Many frameworks exist already, but few define sustainable or resilient infrastructure at the asset level. Investors in particular face inconsistencies, unclear data, lack of interoperability, and comparison challenges between different assets. Climate risks are also increasingly affecting valuations, insurability, and also bankability. Research shows that physical climate risk could drive up to 50% in valuation losses, yet resilient projects can outperform conventional ones, making resilience an economic imperative. These issues are motivated the development of the FAST-Infra Label to improve consistency, transparency, and help mobilize private sector capital, especially as private sector budgets are increasingly constrained around the world. Next slide, please. So our journey so far. So taking a step back, FAST stands for Finance to Accelerate the Sustainable Transition. The origins of FAST were established as a legacy of COP21 in Paris originally, and was later championed by the Sustainable Markets Initiative. I've had the privilege to help shape the label pretty much from inception to this version 2 that we're launching today. The fact that most infrastructure designed today will still be operating by 2050 and beyond reinforces the need for that long-term sustainability standards. In 2022, the first full framework was published and the first 5 projects were self-assessed against it. Today, the label applies for more than $26 billion in infrastructure capex and is supported by representatives across private sector funds, MDBs, DFIs, engineers, consultants, and NGOs. The label has quickly evolved from concept to a globally adopted benchmark standard. Next slide, please. So the FAST-Infra label sits within a broader FAST-Infra group, which is a global multi-stakeholder organisation dedicated to sustainable, inclusive, and affordable infrastructure. This structure that you can see outlined here on the slide ensures robust governance, transparency, and institutional backing. One of the core strengths is a diversity of contributing institutions to the FAST-Infra group and the label, from development finance to sustainability standards bodies. This ensures the label reflects the balanced global good practice rather than any driving of any single agenda. It provides independent oversight, credibility, and technical rigor. And these qualities are essential for developers, investors, and governance seeking trusted sustainability standards. Next slide, please. So moving on to some of the benefits of the label. Here we've tried to show some of the sort of key aspects where the FAST-Infra label provides value across the full infrastructure project lifecycle, from initial feasibility, consenting, through to due diligence, financing, construction, operations, and long-term asset management, interfacing with key stakeholders at each stage. And hopefully we've got a spectrum of stakeholders joining us on this call, and they can see where the label can be of benefit to their work and their organisations. The label builds confidence and project viability through providing a global good practice baseline, albeit we're actually aiming for best practice alignment, and the label features many best practice features. It also provides evidence-based sustainability and resilience data. It serves as a quality benchmark, improving visibility with investors. The label also supports a streamlined reporting and disclosure platform, which is ever more important at the asset level. This enables both environmental, social, governance, and climate resilience risk to be assessed and mitigation measures to be implemented and demonstrated at the asset level. The underlying methodology has been specifically designed to align with existing major environmental and social risk frameworks, including the Equator Principles, IFC performance standards, and wider regulatory taxonomies, which supports the bankability of projects. In terms of project stakeholders engaging with the label, I'm just going to cover off 3 of the main groups, but there's many more that could be included here. Firstly, government public procurement departments. These use the label to signal expectations on project developers and sponsors going forward. There's also development finance institutions and multilateral development banks who use the label as a benchmark for meeting safeguards and also for defining contribution to their sustainable finance criteria. And there's there's private investors, both debt and equity side, using the label as a reference for trusted sustainability standards for raising investment into quality infrastructure projects. So that's just 3 examples. As I say, there's many more. So ultimately, the label boosts trust, reduces risk, and helps channel more capital into more resilient, more sustainable infrastructure. So with that, please continue to include your questions in the Q&A, which we'll address later. And before Jaco shows a demonstration of the new version of the label, I'll now hand over to Beatrice for a deeper look into the foundations of the label and to look at some of the new features for version 2. But firstly, we're going to take a look now at the growing footprint across the capital stack. Beatrice, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. Right, so to build on that point about the evolution of the label, let me briefly give you an overview of where we are in terms of market footprint. As of today, 327 projects have been registered on the portal, of which 216 have received the self-assessed FAST-Infra label, representing a total capex of more than $38 billion. Key adopters include the Inter-American Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and Almore Capital, which have applied the label to several projects and portfolios. So next slide, please. The FAST-Infra label is a meta-standard built on more than 100 recognized best practices developed by the 16 institutions shown on the left-hand side of this chart. These sources include, for example, 95 sources from the International Finance Corporation, including the IFC performance standards, which are among the main references used to develop our questionnaire. The IFRS S2 standard on climate-related disclosures was also used, specifically in the resilience and climate change mitigation criteria, to complement the IFC performance standard and other sources. So all of these sources were then integrated into our questionnaire, which is structured around the 4 dimensions of sustainability, including ESG and resilience. So each dimension is further divided into specific criteria, 14 in total, covering a broad range of topics from biodiversity and stakeholder engagements to financial integrity. So to apply for the FAST-Infra label, project applicants must first register on the data upload portal. Once their account is approved by the Bloomberg administrator, they are asked to provide some initial information, including the minimum safeguards. These are key documents such as the environmental and social impact assessment, the stakeholder engagement plan, and the climate risk assessment. Within this section, project also must demonstrate alignment with the IFC performance standard or an equivalent framework. Once these minimum safeguards are met, the project moves to the main questionnaire, which is based on baseline requirements. These are indicators that reflect sustainability best practices across the label's 14 criteria, in line with established standards and frameworks. In addition to meeting the baseline requirements, project must also demonstrate at least one positive contribution under a sustainability criterion. And this positive contribution might come from either the project's inherent nature or from specific design and management choices. For example, a water desalination plant in a water-stressed area can help reduce water scarcity and address climate-related water risks, demonstrating a positive contribution to the resilience and adaptation criterion. But additionally, if it is also designed to supply water to underserved community, it can further expand access to essential services for vulnerable population, demonstrating an additional positive contribution to the gender and inclusivity criterion. So if the minimum safeguard, baseline requirements, and positive contribution are successfully demonstrated, the project is automatically awarded the self-assessed FAST-Infra label, which is valid for 1 year. Applicants may also choose to undergo third-party verification by engaging one of our trained verifiers in order to obtain the verified FAST-Infra label, which is valid for 3 years. So what is next in version 2? While the core requirements remain broadly the same, version 2 of the FAST-Infra label introduces a number of important enhancements. These updates reflect the feedback received from project applicants and other stakeholders during the rollout of version 1. So from a framework perspective, the baseline indicators have been streamlined. So similar indicators were grouped together and requirements were further refined and mainstreamed. As a result, version 2 includes 22% fewer baseline indicators than version 1. For example, within the biodiversity criterion, requirements are now more clearly differentiated depending on whether the project is located in a critical or non-critical habitat, with less stringent requirements applying in the latter case. We have also introduced an exemption from disclosing construction phase greenhouse gas emission for projects acquired while already in operation, in order to avoid penalizing those projects that have changed ownership during their life cycle. And in addition, we have simplified the requirements related to tax exemption and to a project impacts on a country's sovereign debt. Another key improvement is the addition of more guidance notes and references for each indicator. In total, 87 new guidance notes have been added to the questionnaire. These include practical tools that can help project applicants complete the questionnaire, such as the Gender Equality, Disability and Social Inclusion, or GEDSI, toolkit in the Inclusivity and Gender criterion. New guidance notes also include mathematical formulas to support the estimation of quantitative indicators and improve comparability across data, as well as more specific references for each indicator to provide clearer context for the questions being asked. We have also expanded our taxonomy to include new sectors, allowing best-in-class, higher-risk assets to be considered for the label. In this context, we introduced 36 new risk mitigation indicators covering high-risk assets, including fossil fuel-based assets, hard-to-abate sectors, biomass, data centers, and defense. These risk mitigation indicators are aligned with the EU taxonomy criteria for substantial contribution to climate change mitigation. And finally, we align the positive contribution indicators more closely with the Sustainable Development Goals by translating the relevant SDG indicator from a country level to the asset level. This has resulted in 30% more positive contribution indicators, giving projects greater scope to demonstrate positive contribution across a wider range of areas. So this chart, which is also published on the label's website, shows how the Sustainable Development Goals indicators are mapped against the FAST-Infra positive contribution indicators. For each SDG, you can see the share of indicators that have been linked to corresponding FAST indicators. And the flow represents this connection. And by clicking on the flow, you can see the relevant SDG indicators alongside the matching FAST positive contribution indicators. For example, SDG indicator 7.1.2, which relates the proportion of population with primary reliance on clean fuels and technology, is mapped to the FAST-Infra indicator E2YM3, which measures the increase as a result of the project in the number of people relying primarily on clean fuels compared to the pre-project level. So I will now leave the floor to my colleague, Jaco Kemp, to demonstrate these changes on the data upload portal.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Bloomberg is the data repository for the FAST-Infra label. Our values strongly align with the FAST-Infra goal of supporting sustainable development. There continues to be a challenge in the industry of delivering standardized and transparent sustainability data for infrastructure and investment decisions. And we at Bloomberg have a long track record of successfully normalizing and categorizing data to ensure comparability and consistency across companies, industries, and regions. Therefore, we are proud that we are able to bring this expertise to the data repository. The portal is also a scalable solution that makes it easy for project submitters to disclose data and for verifiers to evaluate projects and assess sustainability for the label. By collecting project data that is transparent and standardized, we can deliver a data product to the investment community that is easy to access and comprehend, it's transparent, standardized, and of high quality, and it's difficult to greenwash because it's data-driven and verified. And now we're going to play a short video that shows how the portal supports version 2 of the FAST-Infra label.
Hello and thank you for joining. My name is Jaco Kemp from Bloomberg. In today's session, I'll walk you through version 2 of the FAST-Infra label on the Bloomberg Data Upload Portal. As we move through the platform, I'll highlight the key features of the portal, point out enhancements we've made since version 1, and show you what's new in version 2. The FAST-Infra Portal registration experience has stayed the same in this latest version. To get started, choose FAST-Infra Label from the top drop-down list. Then create an institutional account by setting up a username and password. Then you'll complete the required details and submit your registration. Once submitted, you'll receive a confirmation email if your information meets the registration requirements. You'll also find links to our privacy policy, terms of service, and FAST-Infra Label data policy, which we recommend reviewing as part of the registration process. Once your registration is complete, simply navigate to the login page and sign in using your credentials and email address. Once you log into the portal, you'll land on the application page where you can see all of your current applications. We've added a clear version indicator so that you can immediately see which version each application is using. For any version 1 applications that haven't been completed, you'll also see a message highlighting that version 2 is now available. When you navigate into a project, a pop-up will appear with more details about the update. From there, you can choose whether you'd like to proceed with version 2. Once you open the project page, you'll notice that the overall interface remains the same. You can still navigate between the project identification, minimum safeguards, and criteria on the left-hand side, while completing the application details on the right. All relevant information from your version 1 application has been carried over into version 2. We've clearly highlighted where indicators have been updated and where new ones have been introduced, so it's easy to see what's changed. Over the past year, we've also placed a strong focus on improving the user experience. One example of that is that the source of each indicator is now displayed directly alongside it, giving you clearer context as you complete the application. In this case, the framework references the GEDSI Lens toolkit with a comprehensive set of supporting documents available for further guidance. Here's another example of a quantitative indicator which includes a mathematical formula to support standardized calculations. Back on the application page, you also have the option to start a new application. Any new application you create will automatically launch using version 2. In version 2, we further expanded the sector coverage. This includes adding new items to existing categories such as power generation, as well as introducing new sector categories like carbon management and nature-based solutions. One feature I'd like to highlight, which has been in place since version 1, is that only relevant indicators are displayed based on your selection. In this example, we've selected carbon transport. As a result, the FAST-Infra framework requires additional sector-specific disclosures. For example, under the climate criteria, indicator E2L2W is shown here, and it would not have appeared if the carbon transport sector had not been selected. Once you've completed your application, you can move to the application summary page. From here, you are able to submit your application for a self-assessed label. We've also introduced an enhancement to improve the submission experience. If your application does not meet the requirements, you'll be able to return to the summary page, where you'll see a clear breakdown of the dimensions that have not passed. From here, you can easily navigate to the specific criteria that needs attention. By clearly highlighting where requirements aren't being met, the platform helps you focus directly on what needs to be addressed before resubmitting. Once your project has been awarded a self-assessed label, you can navigate to the Awarded Labels tab. From here, simply click on your project to access the label details page. This is where you can download your official label, as well as the positive contribution icons for use in line with the FAST-Infra Secretariat's terms and conditions. That brings us to the end of today's walkthrough of the Bloomberg Data Upload Portal supporting FAST-Infra Label version 2. As we've seen, the portal has been enhanced to make the version 2 application process clear, transparent, and easier to navigate. From version visibility and guided updates through to submission and label download. Our focus has been on improving usability, increasing clarity around indicators, and creating a more seamless workflow across the platform. Thank you for joining today's session. If you have any questions or need further support, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, so thank you, Jaco. How does the version update affect your project? For new label applications, the process remains unchanged, as shown by Jaco. Once logged into the portal, project applicants will need to complete the version 2 requirements in order to obtain the label. For pending, renewal, and expired label applications, applicants will need to log into the portal, assuming they already have a registered account, and submit the renewal application. As part of this process, data from previous application will be carried over. Applicants will need to confirm the information carried under the minimum safeguards or upload any new supporting documents if needed. For the baseline requirements, some data will also be pre-populated based on prior application. However, project will likely need to answer a number of new or updated indicators to align with version 2. They will also need to update any indicators where there has been a material change and complete the quantitative indicators for the most recent calendar year. And for the positive contribution, applicants will need to respond to new quantitative indicators introduced through the SDG mapping. Beyond that, the project remains unchanged. So moving forward, we will be releasing further enhancements as part of the version 2 in response to market demand. First, we will further improve the user interface, and this includes a few things. Clearer instruction to be added to the registration page in order to prevent users from entering personal data instead of institutional data. An automated notification system to inform project of upcoming label expirations, both 3 months and 1 month before the renewal deadline. The inclusion of clearer guidance and next steps in the application process within the automated notification system sent to both awarded and rejected labels. And finally, the inclusion of the glossary and bibliography directly on the portal to avoid users having to jump between the portal and the FAST-Infra Label website to consult these documents. Starting this quarter, we have also been testing the optional resilience add-on. At the end of 2025, we conducted a working group on resilience and insurability, which resulted in renewed interest from the insurance sector and in the label, as well as the development of a set of indicators on vulnerability assessment and insurance coverage, which have been included in an Excel add-on module to the FAST-Infra label. In the third quarter of the year, we will release the multi-project assessment feature. We will make it easier for portfolios of projects to be labeled by using the template-based application function. User will be able to create new project applications from existing ones to streamline the labeling of groups of projects with similar characteristics. And finally, by the end of the year, we will provide awarded or rejected label submission with a PDF report for sharing with stakeholders, summarizing the sustainability criteria met by a project. And this will facilitate communication about the label between different stakeholders. So 2026 is shaping up to be a very eventful year, with our participation planned at several key events. The Shanghai Climate Week and Washington Spring meetings at the end of April, London Climate Week in June, and Paris Infra Week and COP31 in November. To conclude, we would like to express our sincere thanks to all those who contributed to the development of version 2 of the FAST-Infra Label Framework. In particular, we acknowledge the adopter of the FAST-Infra Label, whose engagement and feedback has been invaluable, the governance bodies of the FAST-Infra Label for their continued oversight and strategic guidance, the Nature Conservancy for its technical input and support on the biodiversity criterion, the Green Cities and Infrastructure Program, JETSI Toolkit team, for its contribution to the integration of practical gender equality, disability, and social inclusion consideration into the gender and inclusivity criterion, and the Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute for its technical input and support on the health and safety criterion. And with that, I hand it over to you, Hayden.
Beatrice, thank you, Jaco, as well. So before then we move on to Q&A, let me just bring together some of the themes that we've discussed today, certainly some of the bits that I've taken away. We've explored the global infrastructure challenge and the need for sustainability, resilience, and long-term bankability. We've reviewed the evolution of FAST-Infra Label from early concepts to today's version 2 enhancements, reflecting that continuous improvement and market feedback. We discussed the core benefits there: confidence, comparability, clarity, enhanced sustainability and resilience, and the role in improving project viability and, again, bankability. I think that comes through as well. Finally, we looked ahead at some of the new version 2 features, and we gained some insights into the future developments around stronger guidance, improved usability, user experience, new risk mitigation indicators, those multi-project tools, which I think could be really valuable, and the resilience add-on, not least also the aspects covered off by Jaco there around that sort of clear, transparent, easier to navigate platform user experience, which I think is a really good enhancement. So with that, and actually right on time, so as we bring today's session to a close, we do so, of course, with Jean-Francois very much in our thoughts. And as we reflect on his life, we do so with a deep appreciation for the immense dedication he brought to advancing sustainable infrastructure, work that stands as his legacy. His contributions will continue to benefit countless communities around the world for decades to come, and his impact will live on. And with those thoughts, on behalf of me and the whole FAST-Infra community, we look forward to collaborating with you to deliver the next generation of infrastructure, resilient, inclusive, and aligned with global sustainability goals. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.